all the same. Kills Twitter. Okay, cool. We're live. We'll pass the thing out as soon as... Oh, is it private? Probably imagine I am if there's nothing on here. Let me take a look.
Full in here.
Yeah, it's private figures. Public. There we go. Hit refresh.
Howdy, Ultimate.
Hi, it's Rouge, but yeah.
Rouge, okay.
Yeah.
Not familiar with everyone just yet.
No,
It's okay. I'll just change my name here, since I'm never on here anyways.
Yep. This is the nice gentleman at BabsCon who stared at me while I slept.
That's wonderful.
Indeed.
You say I stared at you. All I did was found a comfortable chair that happened to be right across from you.
You know what? I will let our armed former military people get away with that. No one else. Oh, hell.
Hey man, alright, I'm trying to add Gilded Dash. Problem is I can't give the Discord. Well, no, you have it, so. Alright, let me add Gilded. I'm very all over the place.
Gilded. Send me your Discord.
No, I got it. I gave it to you.
Okay, cool. Oh, on Skype or Twitter?
On Discord.
Alright.
And besides, you talk about me being creepy. I'm not the one taking pictures of people while they sleep and showing them on Discord.
I'm sorry, what?
When? To who?
I think you were talking to Buttons on Discord, or it was somebody with a female voice. And I managed to pass out and go to sleep, and I was holding my docky while I was.
You were across from my bed. You were across from my bed.
I love how you're just like, I was asleep, hugging my docky. Excuse me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I got it. No. That doesn't work that way. I was minding my own business in my bed. You were across from
I was minding my own business in my chair.
Oof.
I was minding my own business outside your house. It's okay.
Oh my god. Hey, Fluffin.
I'm standing next to your car, not in your car, sir. I'm minding my own business.
See, we had this debate the other day with Buttons. When we were trying to stream. Actually, in Buttons' stream, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, actually, we were. It was while I was playing Okami, and we were talking about this subject. And I think we brought up, I brought up the fact of how Steph was trying to say the aesthetic thing, and I'm like, but the colors of the flag, what? It's a rainbow. How is it not aesthetic?
All the colors clash together. If you mix them up, they're going to be brown.
That's another thing that had my go, was people in the LGBT community like, they're just leaving black and brown out of the flag because they're excluding black people. No, because it's a rainbow, and the rainbow does not have brown or black. We are not excluding people by color.
One thing I'm curious about is, when are straight people going to finally be included in the LGBT community? We've been excluded and shunned for so long. We demand representation.
Oof. Wait, who in the LGBT community were shunned?
Straight people.
Actually, straight people are valid because they are a form of sexuality of some sort. They're technically the new gay because they're less common now.
Exactly. I can't believe this country is full of so many heterophobes.
I'm not a heterophobe. I think that they're valid. I mean, I'm hetero. I'm demi-hetero, but I'm hetero.
There we go. We almost have everybody.
We are getting along, people.
Yep.
Yay! Hi, Gilded.
Hello.
There we go. I'm going to introduce everybody around the chat. We are joined by Buttons.
Hey.
Who's embittered by turmoil. Random pool guy who's ex-military. Are you ex-marine, sir?
Yes. Howdy, y'all.
Excellent. How many years, by the way?
I was 6 years in the reserves and was activated once to go to Iraq.
Oh, very good, sir. Rouge.
Yo.
Indeed. As well as Gilded Dash, who is in our Venn diagram of everything we need to talk about, who is also trans and ex-military.
Yes, I am. That would be me.
Indeed, solid. So,
Which branch did you serve in, Gilded?
Navy, 5 years active duty.
Good to go.
so we were talking about how apt or valid or how this, that, and the other, if it's a good idea or not. I thought we might start with Gilded because you have experience in both of these fields. Do you feel that it's an avenue that should be allowed, or what are your thoughts?
Well, see, my thoughts on this are very, I guess you'd say controversial in a way, because the fact that I honestly don't think it's a good idea. For many, and for most of my reasons are more to do with the camaraderie that you would see in the military, and it just when one person makes the rest of the unit feel kind of, I don't know, off, that person tends to be either ostracized. They might be accepted, but I mean, when I was in the military, I was just a gamer, and even then, I was treated pretty shittily just for being, a person that liked to play video games and stuff. I could just, I don't even want to imagine what it would have been like to, be, trans at that time. Like it would have been, it would have made things a lot harder, and I don't think it's the best idea. Like I think if that's something they want to do, um,
Rouge,
I
can you
think
mute if you're fiddling around back there?
Sorry.
I think it's something that should go back into the whole don't ask, don't tell if they're going to do that, and wait until they're actually out of the military to do full transition. Because I just don't think it's a good idea to try and transition while in the military, because I think it's gonna cause more issues than people would really want, and put more stress on the mental state of the transgender person.
Well, Pool Guy, you've had some experience at the military. What are your thoughts on the matter?
I believe that Gilded is exactly right. There should be no trans serving in the military at all. He didn't say that exactly, but that's my viewpoint on it. People certainly should not be allowed to transition while serving in the military. Um, and the reason why is because it all comes down to mission effectiveness. It has nothing to do with the individual or the person and how they feel and what their mental state is. If they are not capable of doing the job that's expected of them, then they should not be joining the military to begin with. Whenever you do start taking hormones and you're drastically affecting the chemical balances in your body, you're not going to be as physically or mentally prepared to do what's necessary. And ultimately, everyone who joins the military should be prepared to go and fight a war. Um, in my case, in the Marines, we're certainly more apt to be on the front lines and be in the mix of the most violent portions of the war. But even when you're back in the States, you need to be mentally prepared and constantly training. And if you go under the knife, especially like if you change your genitalia, that takes years to heal. It takes an enormous amount of physical therapy to overcome those wounds and to try to normalize yourself and balance yourself. And most of the contracts for active duty are only 4 years in length. And if you're spending 2 years going through physical therapy, you're not capable of doing your job. You're certainly not able to be deployed because you're not physically capable of bearing the loads, traveling, whatever your job may be.
Now, I have to disagree with you on some points. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think I'd like to just. I don't think that somebody that's just going through hormone replacement therapy, I think that they'd still be very capable of fulfilling their physical um, duties. I mean, I've been doing hormone replacement therapy for like 3-4 years now, and I mean, it really hasn't affected my ability to do anything physically. Um, so I don't agree that it's more of a physicality. I think it's more of a mental um, aspect, because of the fact that with your hormones changing, your mental state changes, and of course I always like to compare, at least in my time in the Navy, and I've heard this from other people in different branches, but you know, when you're in the military is, a lot of times it feels a lot like high school, because a lot of people haven't quite got out of that, the clique mentality, the okay, we're this group of people here, we're cool, but this person over here, they're weird and we don't really like them, so we're not going to really associate or bring them in. And that doesn't always happen, but it does have a very good chance of happening while in the military. And I just think adding more mental stress to somebody, like, but let's just get to the point. Transgender people have a higher rate of suicide as it is, and putting more stress on them mentally is just not. It's not a good idea. It's not the best thing to do for them. And if we're worried about the person, then we should. I'm more worried about the transgender person than I am about really the military itself or the other people in the unit. I just really, it's just about that, because I mean, you don't want to see somebody go and off themselves. I mean, I guess you can make a few exceptions here and there. I'm sure there's some people, we'd all agree might, but that's a different story. The fact is, but transgender people are still able to accomplish everything that they want to, accomplish physically. Just because your transition doesn't change your ability to be an effective fighting person. It just changes your, a lot of times it affects your mental state, not so much your physical state. I mean, other than the obvious, secondary sex characteristics and stuff that start showing up or are removed because of the transition.
Okay, so I may be mistaken as far as the physical abilities of somebody who's taking hormones. Female to male, for example, they're going to be boosting their testosterone, so they're certainly going to be a lot stronger, but their bone density isn't going to be increasing. Female or male to female, their testosterone levels are going to be decreasing if they're going through hormone therapy. And you mentioned that they would still be capable of fighting. No, they're not, because you brought up their mental state. A person who's transitioning is already under a great deal of mental stress because they're not who they believe they're supposed to be. So that's already bringing up their mental stability into question. You add on top of that the amount of destruction and stress that comes with war, not even mentioning the training up to this point. A lot of people who do live normal, balanced lives throughout their, growing up and stuff like that, they get to the military and they break down mentally and emotionally when they're otherwise healthy. And you start adding in chemical changes and you put them into high stress situations, they're going to be breaking down even more. Yeah, suicide
We agree on
suicide is
that.
the number one killer of military veterans right now. It's extremely high. And then you add a transitioning person on top of that, and their chances of suicide are going to be exponentially higher. And you had also brought up unit cohesion, a person who's, standing out, they're not fitting in anywhere. That's why the military breaks everyone down. That's why we all talk the same, we walk the same, we dress the same. It's to create that unit cohesion where everybody's supposed to be fitting to the exact same standards so everyone is on an equal playing field. Everyone has the exact same expectations of everyone else. But if you're female, for example, like a natural female, you have lower standards than a male when it comes to your physical fitness test. In the Marine Corps, we're expected to do, at the bare minimum, 3-mile runs in 27 minutes. A female is allowed 31 minutes. They're allowed more time because the female body is weaker than a male's. They have lower standards to meet. They have to do the same amount of crunches, 100 crunches in 2 minutes, but the males have to do pull-ups. We're expected to do a minimum of 3 pull-ups, but a maximum of 20 to get the best score. Females don't do pull-ups, they do arm hangs. They will pull themselves up to where their chin is above the bar, and as long as their elbows are bent, they could extend down below the bar. As long as their elbows are bent, they're still counting time, and they have to get 77 seconds while their arms are bent to get a maximum score. Uh, when we are put in barracks, males outnumber females tremendously in the Marine Corps, but we have to be segregated. So men have to all stay in one barracks and females have to stay in the other. We're given the exact same amount of time in the mornings to prep, but there's 82 males in one barracks and only 4 showers. We all have to rush. There's 5 females in the other barracks and they have 4 showers. So that segregation gives preferential treatment to the females. and now you're bringing in somebody who's transitioning, male to female. A lot of people will take advantage of the fact that they have to meet lower physical standards, and you're going to put a person who's still physically male, who still has their penis, who hasn't gone under the knife, but they're going to be in a female barracks, and that doesn't work. That destroys unit cohesion, and people are very distrusting of folks like that. So it absolutely should not, even if it is just the hormones that a person is taking to begin the change. It should not happen while you're in the military. Wait until you're discharged and do that on your own time and on your own money.
Oh no, we agree. We agree on that. I was just saying that. Physically they could still fight, but yes, mentally, I agree that it'd be very, it wouldn't be a good idea to put somebody transitioning into that mental, pressure cooker. And of course, again, there, I didn't even want to bring, because that's brought up a lot. I didn't think that was a point that point's, hammered to death. That where do they go if they're transitioning? Which barracks do they put them in? How do they treat them? What standards do they go on? That's a whole nother legal and regulations nightmare that you don't want to have to deal with.
But it all messes with unit cohesion and our military readiness. If you're dealing with those issues, that's time that's taken away from training. People are uncomfortable. They don't like this person. The females don't want to be naked around this guy who's transitioning and still has his penis going in and out of the female barracks while they're getting dressed. There is no place for this person to go. And all it does is just break cohesion down. People are distrusting of each other. There's arguments. They're not working together. And now you're less effective when you're needed the most to fight in a battle. So your mind has so much to do with what your physical body is capable of doing. If your mind's not there, it doesn't matter how physically capable you are, you're not going to be effective.
I had another point, if that's okay.
Give it a shot.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like gender dysphoria and transgender is like a mental it is classified as a mental disorder, and I think that even with a transgender, and I think people in general, like with mental disorders that would hinder their performance, shouldn't join, I guess. Like I would never personally, I've figured out for myself with PTSD already, wouldn't join the military because it would hinder the performance of the whole group, and I can't be selfish. Even if I want to help my country, I would rather let someone more capable and able be able to service the country, that rather than someone like myself hindering the performance of the whole, which would hinder the operation.
And that makes perfect sense. And what's really bothering me is gender dysphoria is no longer considered a mental disorder by the World Health Organization, and that has put pressure on the military to no longer recognize it as something as a hindrance. Diversity is our strength, and one of the most frustrating things about politicians and the military is constantly used for social experiments. Sometimes it's a good thing. Like, for example, the first place to be desegregated, where whites and blacks served next to each other in the same units, was in the military. And once it was shown and proven that that could be effective and that these people could work together, then it slowly transitioned into the civil rights movement in the 60s, where people were able to live, equally and together and stuff. But when it comes to mental derangement and disorders like gender dysphoria, they're trying to treat it like a social experiment once again. But these people are mentally broken. They can't function properly in the stringent requirements of the military. They have no business being there.
No, I fully agree. I mean, at this point, like when I went into the military, I didn't recognize I had gender dysphoria. I didn't know about it until almost a decade after I'd gotten out of the military. But nowadays I wouldn't even think about it, because between what happened between the military and now going through this, I probably would have offed myself by now. I have enough issues as it is dealing with my transition. So I mean, that's why I don't think it's a good idea, because I mean, I'm not the paragon of mental health here, but I've been to the military. I've going through transition, and it's just one of those things of don't put more strain on yourself than you need to. I mean, if you know your gender dysphoria, you're gender dysphoric, don't go into the military. I mean, that's just. I mean, there's other ways you can help. If you want to help serve your country, there's other ways you can help. Go through, learn a trade and go work for, DoD contractors and help build the ships or build the tanks or something, that those are ways you can help or learn to or become like a nurse or a doctor and go work for the VA. I mean, there's other ways you can help the military or the veterans without having to be in the military if you so want. I mean, or you can just become a government contractor in general because they have different rules, they have different standards, and you're not going to end up in a wartime scenario most likely in those roles. I mean, you still get pretty much the same benefits that the military gets. So it's a matter of really looking at everything, looking at yourself, and then looking at how it's going to affect you, affect everyone around you. I mean, it's a bad idea. I mean, I get where people are coming from. Let's do inclusion. I'm all for inclusion. Like, I hate to think that I'd be excluded from something just because I'm transitioning because one reason or the other. But sometimes you just have to accept that that's how it goes. I mean, let me be forthright right now. Like, I'm transitioning, and I'm pretty far along my transition, and I usually use the women's restroom. But if I went to an elementary school, I'm sorry, I'm going to the boys' room. I just don't want to put that pressure on anyone. I mean, I just feel like that would be a bad idea because sometimes you got to think about everyone else too, not just yourself.
Yeah, like if you're transitioning and the of course dealing with gender dysphoria it's difficult. I'm not trans. I can't speak on that behalf, but I am like agender / non-binary, and I get the struggle of wanting inclusion with society, wanting to feel equal. It sucks. It really sucks. It sucks when you hear people say they're not going to use your pronouns because they don't respect you or they just want to fuck with you. It sucks when people constantly tell you, if they've known you your whole life, we're just going to call you what we feel comfortable by or whatever. And there's a lot of struggles that people with gender dysphoria deal with, but don't tack more issues with gender dysphoria onto that issue. Being in the military is a very intense mind, emotion, spirit breaking experience, and generally, relatively normally well mentally healthy people going in themselves will also come out mentally damaged. There are people who will come out catatonic at times, and if you're already dealing with issues, tacking more issues onto that isn't going to do anyone any favors, is not going to do your mental health favors, and is not going to do the favors of wanting to give to society and feel included, because you've been included, but at what cost?
Now, there is something somebody said in chat that I found interesting, and I do think it's something that needs to be looked at in a different light. If somebody has already fully transitioned, I mean that is a whole nother separate situation that that needs to be looked at a different light, because now it's a different scenario, and I think those people that have already fully transitioned have had a reassignment surgery and so forth. I think that they still need to be held to or maybe even a little bit higher of a psychological standard when they go in, because every person that joins the military still has to pass a minimum psychological eval, and I think that's something that needs to be looked into too, because I mean, yeah, I agree that if they've already transitioned, it changes the situation a little, but even oh, go ahead.
generally, even someone with gender dysphoria, even if they've already transitioned, will still have some mental effect to the gender dysphoria because it will still linger. You'll still feel bad when people misgender you. You'll still feel bad. You'll still have like uh residuals of your dysphoria, even if you've already transitioned. I know people who have transitioned. I know someone who was getting surgery recently. Um, and yeah, it's still gonna cause you're gonna be like mentally better, but you're not going to be completely healed.
Well,
There's
no,
never a cure all, and you're not going to be completely rid of all of the mental effects.
and I agree with that. That's why I said it's a different standard. It's a different thing that needs to be looked at a different, a different light. Maybe not so much, it just, oh, you're fine. But we're just gonna, because you've already transitioned, you're fine. It's more of a, you know, well, let's look at this as a whole different topic because I feel that it is a different topic.
It's really not, because you can't make individual exceptions for anybody. The military has to be able to have general standards for everyone to meet. Right now they're separated between male and female, and those already have stark differences between the two groups. When you start adding trans people into there, you have to look at the fact that their suicide rate is high even after a full transition, that their body and chemical makeup has been drastically affected, and so ultimately, it's going to be a bad idea to put them in uniform and expect them to perform up to the standards the military has.
Well,
The
that's
military,
why I mentioned that they should be through a higher standard of psychological eval. Like, if they're going to do, if they want to, that they have to accept that they're going to be scrutinized a little bit harder psychologically than everybody else.
and I'm saying that that's completely unnecessary. If they have made a transition, if they've suffered from gender dysphoria, that is a cutoff point. People with bipolar disorder are cut off. They're not permitted to join the military because they have a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria should bar you from joining the military.
people who are bipolar can't join the military.
Correct, because you don't have the mental stability to function properly. If you're having to pop medication before you even join the military, before you've even like broken mentally from the things you've experienced there, then you're not permitted to join. People with bipolar, schizophrenia, severe depression, these are mental things that are going to prevent you from doing the job that's expected of you. You won't meet the standards, and therefore you're not permitted to join.
With
Oh.
bipolar, it's more about the medication than anything.
But
I've met a lot of people that were diagnosed bipolar, got off their medication, and were accepted into the military.
Well, even like if you're off, I actually saw a video on YouTube the other day about someone with bipolar disorder, and it's more than just mood swings or high lows, high downs. Like there are severe cases of bipolar disorder where if you forget your medication for even a day, it can be drastic. Like there was a girl, it was a YouTube channel called In a Minute Videos, and this girl had bipolar disorder so bad she had a manic episode, and this manic episode caused her to literally believe things that weren't real. She would write on the walls, she thought like these outrageously fantastic, and she in her mind psychologically her brain made her believe these things. It would cause her to do very strange things. Like she believed that for some reason, I can't remember the reason, but if she didn't stand in the shower with her clothes on, something would happen. And because she missed her medication, she went into horrible relapses that caused her to be hospitalized for, I think, a month or two.
And
Right,
that's where the different degrees of bipolar
Well,
disorder comes in.
what if someone like has to eat with their medication and they can't eat that day because it's part of the training and they can't take their medication? You know, there has to
Well,
be
no,
like.
I get
that's
that.
that's what I'm getting at. The standards you have to meet. You're not always going to be in a position to where you are going to be able to eat. Some people are required for their mental health to have so much sleep per night. Well, a lot of times when you're serving or even when you're training, you have to stay awake for even days on end. Like there was one point where I didn't sleep for 4 days and I was beginning to hallucinate simply from the lack of sleep. Sometimes food does not get to you. Sometimes you have to go long periods without water. And it's tremendous stress on the body and the mind to try to figure out what your limits are to see if you're capable of doing it. And if you have mental issues already, they're going to be exponentially compounded upon, and you're not going to be able to function. So if you have a mental disorder before you even join the military, you're not permitted to join. If you're discovered to have a mental disability after you've joined, the military will treat you. They will allow you to continue to do your job. They may move you around to something that's less stress, or they'll show some kind of treatment for you. But ultimately, you're most likely going to be passed up on re-enlisting. They'll let you serve out your contracted time, but then you're gone.
And even then, like, there are certain medications for mental health. Like, my medication, I take one anxiety medication and one depression medication, and one medication I have to take before I go to bed because it's a sedative, which is the antidepressant medication. And if I don't take it, it could cause some drastic effects. And if you are having mental health issues and you are in a situation where you cannot take your medication because it could cause you to, like, go to sleep, even skipping your medication like once or twice could set you back really fucking bad. So, like, if they're in the military and they have certain standards that, okay, we have to have you awake, you cannot take your medication and you will be depressed and you will not be able to function.
Yeah, and there's even the side effects of medication you have to
Oh,
consider
yeah.
as well.
Oh, yeah. The medication I take, I didn't want to take after a while. Like, when I started, I wanted to say fuck this because it causes nausea, it causes headaches, it causes dizziness. Like, they cause dry mouth syndrome, which makes you thirstier. So if you're in the military and you're not allowed to have water, you're even worse off. So, like, you really need to take a lot of things into consideration, even like with mental health issues. Um, it's like when with the military, I take it that they don't allow certain people with certain even physical disabilities into the service, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be able to walk on your feet. You have to be able to carry a certain amount of weight. You have to pass physical fitness tests. If you're missing anything inside or outside of your body, like if you lost a kidney or donated one of your organs, you're not permitted to join.
Yeah, so if you have a mental disorder, like, and it is a shame that gender dysphoria isn't considered a mental disorder because I understand people don't want to be a mental disorder because they'll feel ashamed, like, oh, this is something wrong with me. But at the base of the issue, we have to accept gender dysphoria is an issue with the wiring of the brain. My therapist explained this with the hippocampus and the limbic system and how we're wired, and there's some biological effect. There's a lot of different factors, but it is a mental disorder at the end of the day. And if it's treated as a mental disorder, it isn't to make you feel bad about yourself and exclude you, it's to say, okay, there's an issue, let's try and fix it and deal with it and cope with it to help better your living and your life quality. And at the end of the day, if someone with a general mental or physical disorder joins the military that hinders the performance of themselves with the group, there's a lot of factors that have to be considered. And sometimes the military can't afford that.
Well, what I was saying is, I wasn't saying that automatically we should, if somebody are fully transitioned, that it should just be something that is automatically accepted. They should be let in. I'm saying there's something that needed to be looked at differently than somebody that hadn't transitioned. I'm saying that it's a different discussion that needed to be looked at differently to a point because of the fact of now you have to stop and think, what if somebody is transitioned and decide, and because you won't let them join because they've transitioned, they just hide that fact. And people hide things from the military all the time.
Well, a physical transition is going to be extremely obvious, especially if they've gone under the knife to change their genitalia. It's
There'll be
going to be
scars.
physically altered and it's going to be very obvious. And also, your blood is drawn and you have a DNA test done to make sure you're not carrying any kind of diseases in your blood. They do get your DNA on file. So that way, should the worst happen, if you get blown up or burnt in a vehicle and they only find like scrapes of your flesh left, they can at least ID you, and so that way they can say, yes, this Marine died in this vehicle, so we need to make sure that he has a death certificate. Your DNA is going to show you as male because your chromosomes didn't change, even if your body did. You will be found out.
Yeah, 99.9% of the time that's correct.
Yeah, I think the only thing you and I are disagreeing on is after a person has transitioned, if they wanted to join the military, whether or not they should. Uh, They should not, in my opinion, and it's because they still have gender dysphoria even if they've gone through the full transition, and they won't be able to meet the physical standards that the military sets for them. There may be that one exception. There may be that 1 to 2 people who absolutely can do everything after their physical transition, but you can't let those 2 people apply to the hundreds, possibly thousands of others who make the transition who want to apply. You have to go with generalities, and you have to have standards that apply to everyone at the same time.
Well, see, and
hold it. I've been waiting to pop in there. I don't think anybody's really been prepared for this, and I don't have it myself. What I would have liked to have seen is a chart of like how often that this was an issue, since from what I understand it was something that was recently under, political administration that was changed. How much of a problem out of the number of people who were serving was it that they special accommodations had to be made for members who were transgender?
Well, I do know.
I'll look. I'm sorry to cut you off, Gilded. I'll look that up real quick and see if I can find some information. Go ahead.
I do know that there's been certain people that have come out that had said that they've served in the military after transition, but these were people. This happened before all of the DNA testing and everything, and I don't even think in the 2000s they were pulling your DNA on file right away. So.
I'm just looking at a website. It's called the National Center of Transgender Equality. I don't know its validity, but it says currently 15,000 people are serving in the U.S. military today that are trans. It says an estimate.
There's still transgender people in the military.
Yes.
That's why this is an issue, because under Obama, they were allowed to join the military. They were accepted. They were allowed to join the military, and there was even a few people that the military paid for their transition surgery. And this is where it became a big sticking point, because there were quite a few people who felt that, just because you joined the military and you decided to transition, that the military shouldn't have been required to pay for such surgeries.
I don't think that they would have been required. I would think that it would be a kindness of them to do that for them, because it would help their mental health. It would help, might help their productivity in the service if they were able to go home and heal and then come back.
Well, here's a question. I think some people were questioning. I know the counter argument already. Some people would be concerned whether people would be joining necessarily with the only intention of getting that service, but since people are able to join to get assistance with things like college, I don't see why that should be any different outside of, I guess, the mental hang-ups.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, Anthony, I was about to say that too. It's like, people would say, people would join just for the surgery.
But people do that for school.
Yeah, they do that. You don't know how many. Tons of people do a 4-year enlistment just to get.
May I say something if that's okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
The thing about school is it's something to help better your future, better your education, get a career. When you're transgender and you're going through dysphoria, you're already hindered mentally, and going under the knife that'll also cause physical effects and shit. With school, it's not something really to consider, but when you're going into the military and you're expected to do service and they give you surgery, there's going to be some setbacks, some hang-ups, some side effects. There's going to be a lot to consider.
Well,
it's a bit different.
Well, it depends what you're looking at this from. If you're looking at it from the military's perspective, I could definitely see where you would have the hang-ups. I've heard, and this isn't the place to bring this up necessarily, that some of the things that people have had to do to actually pay for those surgeries, this is probably a more respectable avenue.
Yeah,
service.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter a minute ago. I didn't.
I don't think I want to know. Yeah.
It's less than desirable outcomes to pay for such matters. But I'd heard. Well, I'd heard that from what it said that you were almost expected to do those sort of things. If you know what I'm talking about, Gilded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an idea of what you're talking about, and it's just no.
Yeah.
I
I'm not tracking. Is it possible to just speak plainly? What
Okay,
you're...
sure. I'll spit it out. So I remember hearing something along the lines that people would do more adult-oriented services to help pay for those kind
Prostitution.
Yes.
of, along those lines.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that is an issue. If I can't speak on that behalf because I don't know
Well,
the ins and outs of.
let's do basics here. Let's say that you put yourself in a transgendered person's shoes. I could become a prostitute, or I could become a veteran. One of these will make me look really good, and one of these not so much. So no, I understand why the avenue would have been something desirable to have open.
Which is precisely why it should be cut off. It is not the military's responsibility to help you along with your mental health before you even join. If the military is the one who's responsible for adversely affecting your mental health, like it was with me, then it has a responsibility to help you along. It's not about being kind or nice to people. When you join the military, you are doing it as a service. You're not doing it for the benefits. All right. There is no way the amount of work, pain, blood, and tears and emotional trauma you have to go through the military is worth any amount of money or compensation that they will give you in return. It will never be
No,
enough.
I understand that too, but
You have
there are
you
plenty
have
of
to find
people who
some-
do go to college to. I mean, do go to the military to receive their college funding. I know that's not quite
sure.
the same, but
and a lot of people who go that route, when they are forced to get activated, for example, it's like, oh, I don't want to join the military, I just want to join the reserve so I can get that sweet GI Bill money. Well, they got activated anyway between 2003 and 2010. It was almost a guaranteed, and they served honorably. They did their time. They found purpose in what they were doing, something that was larger than themselves, and they served honorably. They did their job right. To join the military to get somebody to pay for your transition surgery, however, is a completely selfish act. It's not an equivalent. When you go to college to make yourself smarter and better, it's potentially so you can give back to the nation, you can give back to your own communities. Transitioning is something completely for yourself because
Yeah.
no one being transgendered alone is going to benefit the rest of the community at large.
I'm
Not-
probably going to
not-
get booed for this. But speaking as I don't know how many college kids are in this thing. I don't know how many people who walked onto a college campus and looked back and said America. They were thinking, man,
Well, no,
I
they didn't-
can't wait
no,
to
that's
make more
not-
money than everybody else.
That's not what that's not what he's saying. He's saying that at the end of the day, when you go to college, you're ultimately going to have a career future. You're going to have a way to be able to get the community. That won't be at the forefront of your mind, but it'll be an outcome. And the outcome for a
Okay.
transgender transition and surgery is a selfish cause because it won't give anything for anyone but yourself.
All right.
It helps.
Exactly my point.
Even if you go to college for selfish reasons, coming out a more educated person that can, do something for the economy in some way. You're now you know how to program, or you know how to fix equipment. Maybe even go work for like Bowen or something like that. Even though it's selfish of you, because that you're just there to make money and get a good career, it still helps the nation in the long run. That's the point that's being brought across.
Yeah, and even if you aren't going to, something higher tier like an engineer or a computer scientist, even if you're going into children's education, you're, bringing this military discipline in with you, while at the same time having compassion and caring for children and helping them learn so they can excel as they get older. If you go to get a college education and you get a degree in a proper field, not lesbian basket weaving, but an actual field that benefits other people, yeah, you have the potential to make more money, so you're benefiting yourself, but the service that you provide through your job or whatever business you're working for adds to the community at large.
No, that sounds fine.
I do want to say that, um, as of right now, I mean, if you have been in the military and then, afterwards, like me, you do find out that you're gender dysphoric, the VA is actually very helpful with that. They do try and help you the best they can. So it's not like they leave you high and dry, but it's not like, I didn't go in because I was transgender. I didn't even realize it back then. So, they do help. They do provide, support afterwards, but that's only because it showed up after after service.
So
You
you're
know,
saying that when you went into the military service, you didn't realize that you were female. You thought like you were still your birth gender, and then throughout the service of the military, it helped you realize you were trans.
no, it took me a really long time.
Ah,
I went a really, really long time without realizing it.
no,
Um,
that's
Well,
valid.
well, I'm curious, Gilded. What kind of help and assistance does the VA give you right now?
at the moment, they provide me the hormone treatments that I needed. They've provided the psychological, the mental health aspect of it. Um, they have provided one surgery at this point for me. I have not had an SRS yet. I am looking into that, but at this moment, VA considers it cosmetic, and therefore, won't provide for it. So I'm looking for other avenues at this point.
Would you tell us what surgery they provided for you, or is that too personal?
If you really would like to know, they removed my testicles.
Okay.
They did that as part of the hormone replacement therapy. Therefore, I didn't have to take more medication.
Okay.
That was the justification for it. I mean, it is kind of personal, but it's like whatever. I mean, I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around the VA's reasoning behind this. Like, obviously, if there's an encroaching disease on your testicles or you've suffered a severe injury, then it would make sense to remove them.
Well, I
Oh, no,
think
well, because it's because if I may, it's because when you're taking hormones, generally speaking, a female, as born a female, I will say, we don't have testicles, which is what creates testosterone, which I would assume if you're taking hormone therapy would clash with the therapy because you still have testosterone within you, so that would kind of hinder the process.
yeah. Well, and the thing is they before then they were providing medication that removed the testosterone from my body, and I think it was just like it was a cost analysis thing where a lifetime of paying for the medication of helping me cover the medication or a one-time surgery. It was a cost benefit analysis thing, I think, for them more than anything.
Okay. Yeah, that can make sense.
And it's just they put it that's the way they put it, and it makes sense in a way, and I don't hold it against the VA that they won't help with the other surgery. I just because that's just the way the rules are. And but let's be honest, um, if Obama had another 4 years, they probably would have been set up to do that kind of thing, though. I mean, so it's just dependent on the political climate too, on what the VA will do for you.
That is true. Yeah, Obama, I remember in the end of 2010, after the election where the Republicans took the House of Representatives, and Congress had a lame duck session where they wanted to push through a bunch of things before the Democrats lost full power of both houses of Congress and the presidency. And it was during that time when they passed the bill that allowed homosexuals to serve openly in the military. So the Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed at that time, and it was very suspicious to me that he would do it during that time. It seemed more for political points than any actual concern because he had 2 years prior to that to where he could have done it. Um, and the same thing happened in 2016. That's when he finally lifted the ban on transgenders in the military, was like in the last few months of his office instead of any time prior.
Well, let's be honest. Any president in their second term, especially towards the end of their second term, is going to do pretty much anything they want at that point because of the fact that they have nothing to lose. I mean, politically, they're done. They've reached presidency. They can't have another term unless I don't. I think there's I don't think there's provision stopping them from running again after they've been out of office for a few terms, but they're never going to come
No,
back.
no, there was an amendment passed after President Roosevelt, who served for 3 terms. I forget which of a constitutional amendment it was. I'll have to look it up. But
Well, I
presidents can
couldn't.
serve serve 2 terms now.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 2 consecutive terms and then they had to wait and then come back, or if it was just 2 terms period.
2 terms
Rose-
period.
Okay, because Roosevelt served like 3 or 4 terms straight.
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt, his cousin back in the early 20th century, he ran for a 3rd term, but he didn't win because he was running on the Bull and Moose Party instead of the Republican Party. Delano Roosevelt was the only one who was elected 4 times.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of, the whole, I get there's transgender people in the military already, and I don't think they should lose their careers at this point because, it's not their fault that the political climate shifted on them or anything. Like, maybe they shouldn't have been in there in the first place, but I think at this point, letting more transgender people come into the military probably isn't the best idea. But if we're going to, be honest, we should at least, let those who are already in the service finish their service out, finish their current terms out so they can leave with an honorable discharge, get all their benefits and so forth,
If we had legislation come down the table and the people who are currently trans and still serving in the military, I could see them being grandfathered in so that way they could finish out their terms like you were discussing. But yeah, certainly put a stop to any new transgender people joining. And I also believe there should be an immediate stop to anyone who is currently serving, whether either reserve or active duty, from being able to transition or even take the hormones while they're currently serving. That should be stopped immediately.
Yeah, I do think that if people want to transition with the military, they need to do it after their service or before, take some time off to heal and then join. But I don't approve of transitioning while in the service because it causes hindrance to the performance and it could even be a danger to your very life at times.
FNGR, what's your take on all this?
One sec, I had to unmute myself. I think you guys basically covered all the things I wanted to say, and I'd already made all the points I needed to. I just didn't want to ramble off just so I could be included in the conversation. Okay. Yeah, I think everybody was fairly reasonable and all that.
All right.
Yeah, they were interested in basically what would better serve the military, which, yeah. One sec, I gotta sneeze. There it goes.
Bless you.
Perfect.
Yes. The first priority of the military is to make sure that everything's working. Yeah, we don't want to wish to give any kind of up to anyone that we're facing on the battlefield, give them ourselves a handicap or a means by which to get a leg up on us. I'm certainly sure that anyone that we would engage would likely not head down these same paths. So, are there fields in the military that you would be able to potentially do without these kind of assistance? Well, you've already mentioned, there's like independent contractors that work on bases and shit, right?
Yeah, some of the shore bases for like the Navy, they, in the mess halls, they're usually civilian, workers in the mess halls, not military. You get the civilian contractors that come in and help, do like tech support and stuff for various things. So there's
medical
there are
personnel and
things.
such.
Yeah, even medical personnel. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, the military does contract out. If you want to be military-ish while still transitioning, join the DoD, like Gilded said. I think that's a good option.
No, what is the DoD?
Department of Defense.
Okay, yeah, I was actually
the
looking at this on screen, I think, a little bit ago when I was looking through. Yeah, the DoD reports the baseline assessment of medical standards. Yeah, it's just them going into the DSM.
Yeah, the Department of Defense is the civilian branch and the executive branch that oversees the military.
I didn't get the acronym, so I appreciate the answer.
You're welcome. Back in the day, it used to be the War Department, but war was just too violent, so now it's defense. So if you look at newsreels from the 1940s about World War II, you'll hear the War Department says this or some kind of War Department report.
Well, I'm assuming that the people who get funding for the DoD or the Department of Defense would be, what do you call those people?
Traveling salesman.
Well, yeah.
On war bonds today. Smash the fash.
No. I was sitting there. The one that everyone complains about, like the NRA or Big Tobacco. You know what I'm talking about. They have to go to
lobbyists.
NAP?
Lobbyists.
Yeah, lobbyists. I'm assuming the DoD have a lobbyist like everything else does, right?
Oh, yes.
So
absolutely.
calling you a Department of War and being a lobbyist it would look poorly on them, and it would also look poorly on the politician. Whereas basically, we need to fund up our defense. Sounds very good, and it pops for the press. No, I completely understand you. Yeah, you have to.
We're not funding a militia. We're funding contractors.
Yes.
We're not hiring mercenaries or private military contractors. Let's get it right.
I was just about to say contract. Isn't that another word for murder on the street?
my
but
God.
anyways, yeah.
No, we do not. They do not have assassins.
Well,
No,
I mean,
technically,
that's
the
not entirely true.
The mercenaries they hire, they call them PMC, private military contractors. But in all essence, they're mercenaries.
Yeah,
They're people that are hired, paid money to go fight, in areas that we don't have our military at the moment.
Yeah, the
Or
downs.
fight alongside the military.
I'll give you a little tip
Our
about
place-
that. Yeah, I was going
Go
to give Buttons a little tip about that. If you're a mercenary in one of those parts, you do not have to be treated with the Geneva Convention because you're not a representative of your nation.
What is Geneva's?
Basically, it's to prevent you from being tortured and treated outside the rules of war.
Oh.
Yes.
But
so,
even then, a lot of the places we are now, they don't even follow the Geneva Convention anyway. So
Yeah, the bad guys we fought, they don't give a damn.
yeah.
See,
Oh,
like for example, one of the rules we have to follow is any place of worship, so a church, a mosque, a temple, anything of that nature, it is not a military target, and therefore we are not permitted to fire upon it. However, the bad guys know this, so they'll set up a bunch of machine guns inside of a mosque and shoot at us from that mosque. So it is no longer a mosque at that point. It is a military target because it's not being used as a place of worship. It's a place of war now. But the only story that gets out is U.S. Marines fire 200,000 rounds into a mosque and 12 civilians were killed. Well, the 12 civilians were killed because the bad guys shot them up with American weapons and then cast the blame on us.
That's horrible.
Yeah, that's the bad guys we're fighting. So when one of them shows up dead or I'm browsing 4chan for a wrecked thread, hey, it just makes me feel better.
Oof. So, do you think that we've come to our natural conclusion here?
I believe so. The only other thing I wanted to add is I found a politifact.com article talking about the number of trans serving in the military. In 2014, POCON started a report to try to determine how many were actively serving in the military. And according to RAND researchers, they estimate approximately 10,790 people are serving in the military versus the UCLA study of 15,500.
No,
So
it's not too
just a
different.
little less than what they were guessing.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark. Okay. Any final words, or do we feel that we've come... Go ahead.
I do have one or two things I want to say.
Sure.
If anybody that's listening to this now or later has anything that they want to discuss with me, they can hit me up on Twitter, Gilded Dash, at Gilded Dash on Twitter. Feel free to hit me up there. Fluffin, you said you're having in the chat. You said you're having issues with the VA. If you want to get a hold of me, I might be able to help you out. I know a little bit about dealing VA, so maybe I can help you out with that.
That would be really good.
There I included Gilded Dash's Twitter, the discussion.
You spelled it wrong.
Okay, well, fantastic.
There's no.
I'll
there's
get
no
it.
U.
I'll get it. Hang on.
There's no you?
There's no U.
Okay.
Gilded Dash.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
got it. There we go. You happy?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Also, where is this stream? Because it didn't pop up in
Oh,
the...
I already streamed on the main channel once, so I put this up on the side channel, Fanon Frenzy.
This
Ah,
would have been
that's
a
why.
good main channel discussion. Spoken was saying in the chat.
Well, I got it too, but at the same time, I didn't want a subscriber burn the shit out of me because I just ran a stream a minute ago. I got it.
Subscriber burn?
It's basically the idea is that when you put up too many videos and people don't click on them, it stops alerting your subscribers.
Oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah. What's it called? Game Theory did a video on it explaining where PewDiePie would mention, he's like, oh, YouTube's not alerting my people. I've had to mention it to Miss Anthropony. If you throttle your channel with too much crap, like streams, people, that's why I try and have like the best. And I was like, since we were covering something I wasn't so sure what we were going to talk about, and I was like, okay, it'll go over here. Again, I'll probably try and link back here when I put up the next video so I could get more discussion, what have you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I will.
Well, the next time I join a stream, I'll be sure to have it open so that way I can read the chat and hopefully get some reactions there too.
All right.
But
No problem. And